until August, but you can just sign up and we'll have more information for you coming in the weeks to come. We're working feverishly on that right now. Keith Hernandez at 4:30, Bill Simmons at 5:05. We're all set in. Mons, you gave everybody a bad pick last night. You were wrong about the game. Nashville got pounded.
The goalie blew it.
So you got the Stanley Cup Final Four set. You got the NBA Final Four set. So we'll do more, especially on the basketball with Bill coming up as the Celtics take on the Cavs. And everyone loved the Toronto against the Cavs, and they were dead wrong. And I expected nothing from them. But I think this series, where everyone's picking the Cavs now, and the Cavs were big underdogs at Toronto in that series. In this series, everyone's picking the Cavs, and I think the Celtics are going to give them an extremely hard time. I think this series is a toss-up. And I wish I could say Houston could beat Golden State, but I don't think they will. I think Golden State will win that series. I don't want Golden State to win again, but I think they will. But I would love to see Houston win. Not that I like Houston, I don't. But I'd rather them win than Golden State. But I don't think it'll happen. I think Houston will win. Tony in Hoboken, what's up, Tony?
Mike, welcome back.
Yeah, what's up?
I haven't had a chance to say that, but you made a point last week. It was a very interesting point about how the fly ball, the home run, has become such a dominant part of baseball right now. It was an amazing point. I didn't realize the numbers were that stacked. But the little ball that's not happening in the major leagues now as much as it used to. I watched the Braves run circles around the Mets last week. They swept them. The Mets had no answers for their speed. They're moving runners over. They're just not playing that kind of baseball. They don't play it offensively. They can't defend against it. It's a very wait back, see somebody hit a long home run, hope you get a pitching performance. And that's what. But
that's the way everybody plays now, though. I mean, even the good teams play that way. They play to the home run. I mean, it's become a strikeout home run game. I mean, unfortunately, that's the way the game has completely gone in baseball. It's about they're teaching kids now how to hit the ball and how to uppercut the ball and how to create exit velocity and have the ball come off the bat and they drive it as far as you can and all that stuff. And you don't even see guys take pitches. I mean, you see guys in games they're behind now swing at pitches when they're ahead in the count, when they're down runs. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. Last night is a perfect example. How does Austin not take a pitch there? The guy lost the plate. He's 2-0. You've been in a slump. What are you doing? You're swinging at a changeup in the dirt on a 2-0 count, and then a half swing at 2-1, and then take strike 3 on a pitch that was close. I understand the strike zone was bad last night, and it really caught the Yankees on a lot of corners and the pitches that were off the plate. But the bottom line is, you know what? That at-bat was awful. Really just terrible. Mark in Astoria. What's up, Mark?
Hey, Mike. How you doing?
Good. What's happening?
Mike, is this really any surprise that the Mets are where they are? They went into the offseason with a ton of holes. They really made 2 moves of note in a market that was screaming for you to make a number of moves if you wanted to, and they didn't take advantage of it. They decided to rely on the same old players yet again. If Harvey comes around, if Matz is healthy, if Cespedes stays healthy, it's always a what-ifs list, and we get what we deserve. And I think sooner or later, in some way, shape, or form, Sandy Alderson has to be accountable. You can't blame the managers and the trainers every chance you get.
Well,
and
they
not
did bring in guys, but they're all hurt. I mean, listen, they've had 2 catches go down. They've had both.
They weren't very good to begin with.
Well,
Mike,
they weren't like these guys, though. Listen, they weren't like these guys. Those guys were at least major leaguers. Those guys can at least at times swing the bat. These guys are just automatic outs. I mean, they just can't play. They brought in Frazier. And I think
Bruce, good signings.
I think Frazier's fine. They brought in Bruce. Bruce is a legitimate guy who hit a lot of home runs, and then they brought in a pitcher who they gave $8 million to, who's been just as embarrassingly bad as most of the pitchers who signed late have been. A lot of the pitchers who were out there and were the guys that were sitting there have pitched badly. A lot of them have. Very few of them have pitched well. But Vargas has been just embarrassing. Dave in New Jersey, what's up, Dave?
Hey, what's going on, Mike?
What's happening?
Nothing. I wanted to ask you a quick question.
you know, when you watch basketball, obviously when Jordan played in the 80s, and, you know, the Jordan rules and the physicality of the NBA style in comparison to what it is today. Now, you obviously look at a guy like LeBron, right? He's built like a freight train, and he's not necessarily that smoother, graceful type shooter. Do you think, since LeBron grew up in an era where basketball was really a physical brutality type of game, and he's more built for that, do you think that now that we're seeing towards that later on now in LeBron's career, we're really seeing that jumper, the fadeaway, he's really perfecting his game? Do you think it sort of took more time? Whereas, because when he was growing up watching, the NBA wasn't necessarily built on that long-range type of game, the three-point
No, I don't think
shooting.
LeBron. Listen, I think LeBron is not a great scorer. He's a scorer. He's not a great shooter. He's never.
Correct, but the way
he's not a great shooter. Well, he
10
gets to the front of the rim. I mean, he can get to the front of the rim against most people, and that gets him enough easy baskets.
Yeah,
which
but you see him
helps.
leaning on his jumper a lot more.
Well,
now
he can
than
shoot the
ever
jumper, but he
has,
still
Mike.
gets to the basket a lot. I mean,
Of course.
and listen, he's not a great foul shooter. He's not a great shooter. I mean, he's a streaky three-point shooter. He has hot streaks.
He's going to have to play more at the elbows towards this latter part of his career. He's going to have to play at the elbows more. Back to the basket.
Nobody stops him. Nobody stops him.
You score in the court. You save
Nobody can stop him from going to the basket. Why would he have to play at the elbows?
As he moves towards this,
well, wait a second. He's already been.
You think he's just going to be gun ho?
He's been doing it for 15 years. Why is he going to stop? He's been playing it 15 years. He's still playing at an unstoppable level. What's he averaging in the playoffs this year? 34, 35 points. So it's not going to change, and he shoots a high percentage most nights. Not a great foul shooter. I want to get to one thing in the NBA in a second because I thought it was fascinating. Here's the Yankee lineup. Gardner, Judge, Didi. Didi's in a huge slump. Huge slump. He's got to make adjustments. Didi's not going to see room service fastballs anymore. He's not going to see 3-1 fastballs. He's not going to see room service fastballs. They're not going to challenge him anymore. They're going to treat him like a slugger. He's going to have to adjust. Stanton, DH, Hicks, Walker, Andujar, Romine, of course, because Gray's pitching, and Torres. So Gardy, Judge, Didi, Stanton, Hicks, Walker, Andujar, Romine, Torres, and Sonny Gray on the mound against the A's. That's where we are right now as far as the Yankee lineup. Here's something that very interesting. I don't know if anyone noticed it. I don't know how much attention everybody's paying to the NBA. But if you watch any of the TVNT stuff with their studio, you know they say a lot of crazy things. And once in a while, there's an edginess between Charles Barkley and Shaq. And Shaq can usually end the argument because he's got the rings. And Charles, who was a great player, does not have any rings. So that kind of ends the argument a lot of times. They got into a feud over Toronto, and I thought it was fascinating because it brought up a lot about where coaching is now. Not just about the personality that they get angry at each other, because I can see times where underneath there's a little edginess between the two of them. And I much prefer Charles personally than Shaq. But here's a fascinating argument, which has a lot to do with how people coach players now. This is courtesy of TNT. Listen up.
You have to repair his relationship with DeMar DeRozan.
No, he don't.
Yes, he does.
No, he doesn't.
Yeah, you have to, because listen, if your best player, you bench your best player.
Why was he benched?
That's not the point.
It is the point.
You don't disrespect your best player.
Listen.
If you don't have a great relationship with your best player, you're never going to win.
That's not true.
He did not.
That's not true.
He did not, well, in your opinion.
True.
No, just because you say something, it's just
That's
your
not
opinion.
true.
No, it's not true.
Me and Pat Riley never saw eye to eye, and what happened to my man win. So it's not true what you're saying.
Well,
it's not true what you're saying.
It's not true.
I'm just letting you know what you did.
Was the man on that team?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Don't even start.
It doesn't matter. I was a role player. You're right, but you know what?
That's my point. That's my point. I'm saying with your best player.
You don't know what you're talking about when it comes to championship.
I'm just telling you something.
Stop baby.
Wayne carried you to that championship. No matter how much you scream you loud, that does not make you right. You're wrong in the city. And
that's why you ain't win, because you're a baby. Stop babying these players.
I'm not babying no player.
He don't play. He don't play. You got to sit his ass down. Period.
He got to repair.
He ain't got to repair nothing. He got to stop babying your players. You got baby. That's why you ain't win.
He got to. I didn't have Dwayne Wade and Kobe Bryant carry me up and down the court.
So why you in the Hall of Fame? Because I got 3 Finals MVP, Chuck.
Because you
Google me, Chuck.
Everybody knows you were a great player.
You see that?
Everybody knows you were a great player.
You don't know what you're talking about when it comes to championship. He ain't got to repair nothing. He got to step up and play.
We all didn't have other players carrying us up and down the court. You can yell as much as you want to.
I got 3 Finals MVP. I mean,
you were a great player.
Thank you.
But you wouldn't have got him if you didn't have Kobe and Dwayne.
I will say.
Now, that's good stuff, because that's real. That's real. And that's to everything that Charles Barkley can't sleep with, because Charles Barkley puts his head in his pillow and can't believe he doesn't have a championship because it bothers him. And he was a great player. He didn't play on a lot of great teams. But one thing, if you're Charles, you can't tell Shaq that he got carried in the finals. The guy does have 3 Finals MVPs. Now, when he was on the Heat, he was a role player. We understand that. That wasn't the point. But I think it's fascinating because there's kernels of both. And I think the problem is, and what they're talking about is, which you didn't get to in the argument, is they're talking about the fact that DeRozan, in the disaster by Toronto, that the coach benched him because he was that bad. And Charles is saying he has to repair his reputation, repair his relationship with DeRozan. And Shaq is saying, nonsense. He didn't deserve to be out there. You know what? The coach doesn't owe him anything. There is degrees to this, though. It depends who the coach is, and it depends who the player is. I don't think you have to be soft and cuddly and lovey and build a relationship with anything except the best player. If you're coaching LeBron James, if you're coaching Michael Jordan, if you're coaching Shaq in his prime, if you're coaching Kobe in his prime, you have to have a relationship as a coach with that player. Phil Jackson had relationships with Michael, and later on with Pippen. He had to have relationships with those guys. These guys, Pat Riley had relationships with Magic and Kareem. When Pat went there as a novice coach, he went to Kareem's house and said, I need you. I need you to help me do this. He had a partnership with Magic and Kareem. So it depends who the coach is, but it doesn't have to be. DeRozan doesn't deserve that kind of respect. That's where Charles missed it, is DeRozan doesn't deserve to be treated that way. He hasn't earned to be treated that way. You got to be you got to be Larry Bird. You got to be Michael Jordan. You got to be Magic Johnson. You have to be LeBron to be treated like that, where the coach has to build a relationship and has to go back and demand, go back and build that relationship, and the player can demand that. If you're DeRozan, you've ever earned that. You're not that kind of player. I don't think he's earned that. I don't think he's even worth that. So it's fascinating how much, though, it turns right away into here. I think you coach players one way. Charles is saying it's all about the player. You got Shaq saying it's about the coach, and he can beat tough luck, and that's why you didn't win, because you don't coach them hard. You just want to give the players what they want and pat them on the back and tell them how good they are and love them and everything like that. See, so I think there's a fine line there. And they're both a little bit right, but I think Shaq's more right. Because I think the players that have to be treated like Charles wants DeRozan to be treated are so few and far between that they're only the very special ones. The ones who make the difference between winning and losing, and DeRozan's not that player. He's not on that level. He was playing against a guy, and that's why I thought there was no way they win that series, because those guys were afraid of LeBron. They're intimidated by him. Larry's just a little guy. He's not going to affect that. But DeRozan doesn't want any part of him. And he doesn't deserve to be treated that way. But you can see how personal it gets as Shaq has to go at him about no rings right away, no rings, and Charles has to come back with, oh, you're getting carried. Well, there was a time when Shaq wasn't getting carried in the finals where he was a absolute force of nature in those finals. So he was a champion, and the guys who have that can act differently, and you can see how frustrated Charles gets in that argument because he can't win it. And I think there's a degree here for both of them, but I think Shaq's more right than Charles is. And that's the difference. And now in the league, and even you're hearing it in baseball, well, I want to tell the players, no, hey, hold the players accountable. Unless you have a special player, you know what? He gets special treatment if he's a special player. He's earned special treatment. That's fine. He's performed. He's proved he's a champion. He's proved he's a leader. He gets special treatment. Otherwise, you got to earn that. Coaches walk in and give that to players right away. That's crazy. And that's what's going on now. That's all you hear now. No one wants to be hard on players anymore. I think it is the wrong way to coach. Back after this.